Welcome back to computer program. Please watch this video to understand how to install the other parts of the computer in the laptop. Today we are basically dealing with the laptop and how to install some of the parts and how to remove some of the parts from the laptop. What are the rules and the precautions that you should follow when you are removing at least a component in the laptop or installing a component to the laptop. Only dealing with the hardware today. Welcome. Watch this video, give a like and subscribe for more videos. Welcome.
How to replace the fan. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure and battery. Removal. Disconnect the right fan cable from the connector on the motherboard. Remove the two 3.5mm E1 Phillips head screws and secure the right fan to the top cover. Lift the right fan off the alignment pins on the top cover and motherboard and carefully slide it out from under the heatsink. The left fan is removed in the same manner. Reverse this procedure to install or replace the IR sensor board. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure, battery, fans, and motherboard. Removal. Remove the 3mm E0 Phillips head screw that secures the IR sensor board to the top cover. Lift the IR sensor board up and off the alignment pins on the top cover and remove. Reverse this procedure to install the IR sensor board. How to replace the LCD panel. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure, battery, WLAN module, and display panel assembly. Removal. Carefully separate the edges of the LCD panel from the LCD enclosure. Important. Strong adhesive strips secure the right and left edges of the LCD panel to the LCD enclosure. Take care not to damage either component during the separation process. Lift the LCD panel off the LCD enclosure. Close the left LCD panel hinge and remove the LCD panel cable from the hinge cover. Remove the LCD panel. Reverse this procedure to install the LCD panel. How to replace the memory modules. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure and battery. Removal. Carefully remove the memory shielding from the retention clips on the motherboard. Push both arms outward simultaneously to release the memory module to the spring tension position. Grasp the memory module by the edges and pull gently to remove it. Reverse this procedure to install the memory module. Important. When installing a memory module, be sure to align the notch in the memory module with the key in the motherboard. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure, battery, and fans. Removal. Caution. Use care when disconnecting the WLAN antenna cables from the WLAN module. A damaged cable or connector can degrade notebook performance. Remove the mylar shielding that covers the WLAN antenna connectors on the motherboard. Carefully disconnect the WLAN antenna cables from the motherboard by grasping the connectors with a small pair of needle nose pliers or tweezers. Disconnect the right rear speaker cable from the connector on the motherboard. Disconnect the webcam cable from the connector on the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the card reader board ZIF connector and disconnect the card reader board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the fingerprint reader board ZIF connector and disconnect the fingerprint reader board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the touchpad board ZIF connector and disconnect the touchpad board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the keyboard ZIF connector and disconnect the keyboard ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the keyboard light ZIF connector and disconnect the keyboard light ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the audio board ZIF connector and disconnect the audio board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the power button board ZIF connector and disconnect the power button board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Disconnect the rear left speaker cable from the connector on the motherboard. Disconnect the LCD panel cable from the connector on the motherboard. Disconnect the DC-in cable from the connector on the motherboard. Using minimal force, lift the locking bar up on the IR sensor board ZIF connector and disconnect the IR sensor board ribbon cable from the motherboard. Remove the four 3mm T0 Phillips head screws that secure the motherboard to the top cover. Carefully lift the left edge of the motherboard off the alignment pins and remove the USB board from the position on the top cover. Guide the external connectors on the motherboard out of the cutouts in the base enclosure and remove. Reverse this procedure to install the motherboard. Place the WLAN module. Before you begin, remove the base enclosure and battery. Removal. Caution: use care when disconnecting the WLAN antenna cables from the WLAN module. A damaged cable or connector can degrade notebook performance. Carefully disconnect the WLAN antenna cables from the WLAN module by grasping the connectors with a small pair of needle nose pliers or tweezers. Remove the 2.5mm P1 Phillips broadhead screw that secures the WLAN module to the motherboard. Grasp the WLAN module by the edges and pull gently to remove it. Reverse this procedure to install the WLAN module. Important: when installing the WLAN module, be sure to align the notch in the WLAN module with the key